I am so happy to have as my guest today my dear friend Wendy Schoen. Wendy is the creator of the Petite Crochet pattern line, and she owns Wendy Schoen Design. Wendy is a regular contributor to So Beautiful magazine and has studied many places, including the Royal School of Needlework in London. Wendy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Martha. It's always great to be here. Today we're going to talk about colonial knot flowers. Now on this little gown that I brought, you'll see the little flowers that look like a group of little dots, and basically that's what they are. So now let's go to the hoop and we'll show you how to do them. Colonial knots are very simple. It's just a glorified French knot. It has an extra wrap. So you know that on French knots you would only wrap the needle once. If you wanted a larger knot, a colonial knot will fill the bill. Now, I've drawn the little series of dots on the hoop, and those represent where I'm going to actually make the stitch. We're going to emerge right in the bottom of the stitch. In other words, we're going to go to the lower end of the knot or the dot. Colonial knots begin with a little loop, and actually it's a backward C. The tip of the needle will point away from me, and so I'm going to bring it in just so that it hangs the thread on the needle. Then I'm going to take my non-stitching hand and I'm going to loop it over the tip of the needle counterclockwise. And if you look at the thread, you'll see that it is forming a figure 8. Now, when you go down in the fabric, you're going to hold on to the thread tail and bring the tip of the needle in above the starting place, or the place where the thread is emerging. Tighten the stitch with the thread tail while holding on to the needle, and then bring it through. Pop it, and while you hold on to the thread, tie the knot. Now, to make it a little bit easier to remember, I've come up with a little rhyme or a little poem so that you can remember the steps easier. First, you make a backward C. The tip of the needle points away from me. Scoop the loop, then over the top, and that's how you make a colonial knot.
Well, I like that poem.
Now, I think it's only fair to mention that if you are a left-handed embroiderer, you would probably have to reverse the motion. So instead of making a backward C, you would make a right reading C, and then you would be scooping this way, and then you would also reverse the motion of the twist. So you would actually be going clockwise on the stitch. I know not many of you are going to be able to do this ambidextrously, but I had to learn how to do that when I learned how to stitch in this hoop, because the hoop never gets rotated. So you have to learn how to do the stitches backwards and frontwards. So I'm going to go ahead and do it again for you right-handers. You want to take and make a backward C. Make sure the tip of the needle points away from you. Bring it through the loop, then over the top and down. Now, whenever you go down in the fabric, try to always go above and down, because if you bring the needle behind the emerging stitch, you actually create an additional loop or an additional twist, and you don't want to do that. And the same goes for a French knot. When you make a French knot, you'll go straight onto the needle, and you will twist it around just one time. So you see you're only making like a little E. And then when you go down in the fabric, you always go forward, never back. So if you see how I'm bringing the needle down, I'm bringing it forward, and the thread is straight, that would be correct. But to bring it back, you see how it makes another loop. So I'll go ahead and make another colonial knot.
Do your little poem while you're doing it.
Okay, first we make a backward C. The tip of the needle points away from me. That's important because you tend to want to do this. So you want to keep the needle point away. Scoop the loop, then over the top, and that's how we make a colonial knot. Okay, so I'm going to make all knots here. They're going to be, of course, closer Then I'm showing, and of course I'm not going to be making it with pearl cotton number 5, but as always, I always like to take it up a couple of steps so that you can see it better. Okay, so this is the end of my flower, and then at this point I would just go to the back and probably weave it through a few of those little stitches, and that would be the end of it. And of course I always add a little leaf or some sort of stitch, usually a lazy daisy stitch, to add dimension to the stitch, and that's all there is.